The 1980s were a decade of big dreams, bold colors, and some truly questionable inventions. It was a time of ambitious ideas, over-the-top marketing, and, well, some spectacular failures. Today, we're counting down 20 products from the 80s that flopped. Some of these failed because they were ahead of their time. Others because they were too expensive, completely unnecessary, or just plain terrible. But first, let's hear from you in the comments. Which 80s invention do you think deserved a second chance? And if you loved nostalgic deep dives like this, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Number 20. The electric doormat. Home security in the 80s got a little creative. The electric doormat was supposed to be a game changer for home security. This German invention would give intruders a mild shock, discouraging them from breaking in. But there were a few minor issues, like the fact that it could also shock guests, delivery people, and even the homeowners themselves. There was always that one person who forgot to turn it off before stepping outside in their socks. Needless to say, this shocking invention didn't last long. Number 19. The Macintosh Portable. Apple has given us some of the greatest tech ever made, but in 1989, they gave us this monstrosity, the Macintosh Portable. It was meant to be Apple's first portable computer, but there was one problem. It weighed over 16 pounds. Yep, that's heavier than some dumbbells. Plus, its battery life was laughable. It was so expensive and impractical that almost no one bought it. Number 18. Premier cigarettes. In the 1980s, tobacco companies were under pressure to create a healthier cigarette. Enter Premier, a smokeless heated tobacco product. Sounds cool, right? Except it tasted awful. Smokers hated it, non-smokers didn't care, and within a year, it was pulled from shelves. Number 17. The Atari CX77 touch tablet. Atari tried to bring touchscreen technology to the masses way before it was cool. The CX77 was a stylus-driven tablet designed for the Atari 800 computer. Unfortunately, in the 80s, nobody was looking for a touchpad for drawing. It was slow, clunky, and way too expensive. Atari pulled the plug before most people even knew it existed. Number 16. Seiko TV Watch. Wearable tech in the 1980s? Sounds impressive. The Seiko TV Watch let you watch television on your wrist. But there was a catch. It needed a separate tuner and a wired earpiece to work. Oh, and the screen? Smaller than a postage stamp. So unless you had superhuman vision, this watch was pretty much useless. Number 15. New Coke. Now, here's a failure for the history books. In 1985, Coca-Cola decided to change its classic formula and introduce New Coke. Bad move. People hated it. The backlash was so intense that within months, Coca-Cola brought back the original formula and branded it as Coca-Cola Classic. It remains one of the biggest marketing failures in history. Number 14. Timex Sinclair 1000. This was one of the cheapest home computers ever made. It cost only $99, but there was a reason it was so cheap. It had almost no memory, a terrible keyboard, and was so underpowered that even basic programs struggled to run. It was a budget-friendly disaster. Number 13. Private Eye. The Private Eye was a head-mounted display that aimed to bring virtual reality to the masses. Instead, it brought headaches. It was bulky, uncomfortable, and only displayed red text on a tiny floating screen. Not exactly the future we imagined. Number 12. Kodak disc film. Kodak thought they had the next big thing in photography, disc film cameras. They were compact, sleek, and a complete failure. The image quality was terrible, the film was expensive, and by the late 80s, they disappeared from store shelves. Number 11. Cabbage Patch Snack Time Kids. Cabbage Patch dolls were a hit, but this one version was a total disaster. The Snack Time Kids doll was designed to eat plastic food, but it didn't stop chewing. Kids got their fingers and hair stuck in its mouth, leading to multiple injuries before it was recalled. Number 10. Gull-wing doors. Gull-wing doors look futuristic, but they're a nightmare in real life. They're heavy, prone to mechanical failure, and impossible to open in tight parking spaces. After a few high-profile flops, most car manufacturers ditched the idea. Number 9. UltiCard. Before digital wallets, there was the UltiCard, a universal card that could store multiple accounts. But here's the issue. It was too complicated to use, required special machines, and banking systems weren't ready for it. It vanished before most people even heard about it. Number 8. Betamax. Sony's Betamax was supposed to be the future of home video. It had better picture quality than VHS, but there was one massive problem. VHS was cheaper and more widely available. Consumers didn't care about slight quality differences, they just wanted more affordable tapes. VHS won, and Betamax faded into history. Number 7. Fisher-Price PXL 2000. This was a toy video camera that used audio cassette tapes to record video. But the footage was awful, the battery life was terrible, and it was way too expensive for a toy. It flopped. Fast. Number 6. IBM PC Jr. IBM dominated the business computer world, so naturally they thought they could conquer home computing too. Enter the IBM PC Jr., a cheaper, smaller version of their popular PC. On paper, it sounded great, but in reality, it was a disaster. First, let's talk about that keyboard. IBM decided to reinvent the wheel and introduced a chiclet-style keyboard with stiff, unresponsive plastic buttons. It felt like typing on a calculator from hell. Then came the price. At $1,269, which is around $3,500 today, it was way too expensive for a home computer. Plus, it lacked serious power, meaning it couldn't keep up with competitors like Commodore 64 and Apple II. Consumers laughed it out of stores, and IBM pulled the plug after just 2 years. Number 5. Apple Lisa. Apple is known for innovating, but not every innovation is a success. Case in point, the Apple Lisa. This was Apple's first computer with a graphical user interface, a bold move at the time. It was also one of the first to introduce a mouse. Sounds revolutionary, right? It was. But the price? $10,000. In 1983. That's nearly $30,000 today. You could buy a new car instead. The Lisa was powerful, but slow, bulky, and way too expensive for most people. Apple later took what worked from Lisa and applied it to the Macintosh, which was much cheaper. Lisa, it disappeared into Apple's forgotten history. Number 4. Coleco Adam. Coleco is best known for its Cabbage Patch dolls and the ColecoVision console. But in the early 80s, they wanted to compete in the home computer market. Their solution? The Coleco Adam. On launch day, people were excited. It was affordable and came with a printer. But then, reality hit. First, there was a catastrophic design flaw. When you turned it on, it would sometimes erase any cassette tapes that were inside it. Imagine accidentally wiping out your entire game collection just by pressing a power button. To make things worse, it overheated, crashed constantly, and had tons of bugs. Within a year, it was dead. Number 3. Capacitance electronic disc. Before DVDs, Blu-rays, and streaming, there was CEDs. The capacitance electronic disc was a video format designed by RCA that looked like a giant vinyl record for movies. Instead of lasers like a CD, it used a needle to read the video. Yes, a needle. That meant scratches could ruin the playback, just like on a vinyl record. The players were expensive, the discs wore out quickly, and by the time it hit the market, VHS and Laserdiscs were already winning. After spending $600 million on development, RCA pulled the plug in 1986. Number 2. Ford Edsel. The Ford Edsel's reputation as a failure followed it into the 80s and well past the decade. Ford spent years hyping up this car, promising a futuristic design and features that would change the industry. The problem? It was ugly. The grille looked like a toilet seat, the car was overpriced, and the marketing was a mess. Ford built way too many of them, assuming it would be a smash hit. Instead, dealers couldn't even give them away. By the late 80s, the Edsel name had become shorthand for failure. Today, it's a collector's item, but back then, it was one of the biggest automotive disasters ever. Number 1. The Do-It-All System. The 80s were full of wild ideas, but few were as overly ambitious as the Do-It-All System. This was a home entertainment device that promised to replace your TV, computer, phone, stereo, and gaming console all in one box. It sounded revolutionary, but in practice, it did everything badly. The screen was tiny, the sound was awful, and the controls were a nightmare. It was also super expensive, making it an easy pass for most families. It flopped so hard that most people have never even heard of it today. And with that, we've come to the end of today's video. Which of these products do you think was the biggest fail? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.